For many Barbadian youth who may not have opportunity, entrepreneurship may just be that special pathway. In this episode, we have a conversation with youth serial entrepreneur, chartered accountant, and influencer, Mr. Don Leacock. He speaks exclusively to his father's legacy and also his vision for Barbados, where entrepreneurs thrive. This is One on One. I'm Mishron Robinson. Welcome to this edition of One on One. This evening, we're having a conversation with the founder of the Build Up BIM charity, and he's also an influencer and chartered accountant. Who are we speaking about? Mr. Don Leacock. Donald, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
You are most welcome. You've been doing tremendous work. We've known you within the realms of politics as a young influencer as well. And I'm curious to know, what was the exact moment that you realized that your work, as opposed to being a back office accounting professional or existing solely within the corporate space, your work was actually meant for influence, for good, and for the streets of Barbados? When did that exact shift happen?
That exact shit happened in early 2022. I was living overseas in Bermuda. I was working for Ernst & Young, one of the big four financial services firms. And we talk about 9 to 5s. It was more like a 9 to 9 that I was there working. Really, really long hours, tough work, looking at spreadsheets, computer screens all day. And I thought that it was time for a change. Some of the biggest factors in moving back home were my granny. My granny was about to turn 100 at the time. My little brother was about to leave Barbados to pursue education abroad. So I didn't want my mother and same grandmother, who was about to be 100, to be at home alone. So those I would say were the two biggest factors, along with pretty much burnout. As I said, it was like a 9 to 9 job. So early 2022, I moved back to Barbados, and that's when I started making videos. So about 4 years later, gained about 22,000 followers since then. I'm just grateful for the journey and only know where I'm at.
You speak about, coming back home to family at the end of the day. And your dad, he held a very influential post in Barbados. How is your dad's legacy? May he rest in peace. How has his legacy influenced what we see today in terms of you, Donald Leacock?
Well, as you said, I've had, I would say, big shoes to fill. I would hope that I am making him proud and that I'm filling them slowly but surely. And yes, he was a very community-minded person as well. And he was a civil servant, fighting to keep our streets safe and putting those dangerous criminals behind bars. So obviously, I'm not an attorney. I don't do anything in that realm. But from the community-minded perspective, I grew up with him donating stuff to lots of orphanages at Christmas time. He was an orphan himself growing up, so that's something that I'm really, really fond of. Definitely helping out the orphanages. Nightingale's Home in Black Rock and some of the others. So that's something that Build Up BIM always looks to do. So yes, I'm just trying to, keep this Leacock name as strong as it possibly can. He was taken from this earth, in my opinion, way too early. He was only 59 years old in his prime. So I just need to keep making sure that Leacock name lives on.
For the audience who may not know of you, your dad, and his legacy, tell us about that, what the Leacock name represents. I would assume resilience. Your father being an orphan at the time. Tell us where he grew up and what title he carried as well, and the influence he had within the Caribbean region.
Sure. So he was born in Susdike, Guyana. That's about maybe 80, 90 miles from the capital, Georgetown. So almost into the interior, like the Amazon rainforest. His father died when he was a baby. His mom died when he was around 7 or 8 years old. So his older brothers and sisters pretty much raised him from then. And he always touts education as the only reason he's still in the Amazon today. In Guyana, they have programs where if you do 11 plus exams, you can get scholarships to go to good secondary schools. So he was one of the best performers in his village in their equivalent to the 11 plus. And that gave him a full-time scholarship to go to a secondary school in Georgetown. So he actually left home at 11 years old, knew nobody in Georgetown at the time, and went and pursued secondary school there. When he finished secondary school with his equivalent to CXCs and Cape, in those times, he was awarded a Guyana scholarship, just like we have the Barbados scholarship, which allows you to go and travel to pursue higher education for free.
Yeah.
That's when he came here to Barbados. So he did his LLB. I can't remember the year exactly, and maybe the mid 70s or so. He would have moved to Barbados, done his LLB, and then he went to Trinidad to do the full law school. He worked in Dominica for 2 years after law school before finding a job here in Barbados because he had met my mom during UE, and they had kept writing letters and corresponding through that. So then when he moved back to Barbados full time, I think it was in 1982. Yes, their relationship rekindled and they were married by 1984. So during that time, he became a lawyer. He was working in various departments, but the one that he loved the most, working for the Barbados government, was criminal. So the Director of Public Prosecution. So he worked in that office from 1985 until 1996, the year I was born. He was made the Director of Public Prosecution. So the Chief Justice and the others in the legal fraternity were so satisfied in the work, he became the youngest Director of Public Prosecutions in Barbados history at the age of 39. And that was the same year I was born. So from 1996 until his untimely passing in 2017, I would definitely say that he was definitely one of the strongest lawyers to face. His record, I can't tell you the exact legal record right now, but he was definitely one of the stronger ones in the profession.
Yeah.
He got quite a few notable convictions. We don't need to go into them now, but I really think that he was a role model in the legal community that all other younger lawyers and aspirants, even sometimes former convicts or inmates of the prison, come up to me and be like, your father had prosecuted me 20, 30 years ago. I do it 2, 3 years in jail. It was my fault. I deserve it at the time. So nothing but respect for him.
How do you feel? Your father had influence not only within Guyana but also Barbados, and there's a tremendous pan-Caribbean story that's coming out of there from working in Dominica, coming from the realms of Guyana as well, and then also existing within Barbados. So for you, in terms of your work, I know you also have partnerships within intra-regional partnerships as well. How do you feel about the possibilities of Caribbean nationals making an influence not only in Barbados but across the region?
Well, I'll say this all the time, as I always do, the Caribbean should be one country. The Caribbean would be so much better off if we combined all of our efforts as opposed to competing. We're the smallest economies in the world and we're all competing against one another in tourism and other industries. Instead, we could have a dedicated tourism hub, make that Barbados. We could have a dedicated gold and bauxite export hub, make that Guyana. We have a dedicated coffee hub and marijuana, make that Jamaica. We all have our strengths, but instead of playing to our strengths, we are still competing against each other, mostly in tourism, but in other industries as well. So I really think that any kind of integration of Caribbean people is a huge positive for us all. Lots of people have varying opinions on the free movement here in Barbados, where we can go to Belize, we can go to St. Vincent and Dominica.
Yeah.
And lots of people are saying, well, it might be an unbalance. Lots of people might come here. As opposed to Bajans going there. But that really, to me, is besides the point. I really think that we as a Caribbean people, we're all so much more similar than we would like to believe. Even the speed tour that just passed through the Caribbean, lots of the countries did the same things. We all held a little carnival for them. We all played steel pans. We all did very, very similar activities. All the Caribbean countries are very similar. And the division is just noise. Anything to do to integrate the region, I'm fully supportive of that.
Speaking of Aisho Speed and his Pan-Caribbean tour, what do you think is the biggest lesson he actually left with influencers like yourself within the Caribbean?
That it's possible. Speed started even simpler than me. He just started with his webcam streaming games on the computer. Obviously, that's in America where the audience is millions of people. But for you doing it here in the Caribbean, you just need to find a way to be relatable. So Speed travels the world. He has a worldwide audience. And I think the best takeaway from that, for Bajan creators specifically, and this is for Bajan songwriters and artists as well, you need to make your music and your content as a whole acceptable to the whole world or relatable to the whole world. All of these little inside jokes about Barbados in our songs and lyrics, that's why we don't blow up on the world stage like we really could. If we really made our content relatable to the wider Caribbean or even the whole world, we could see Aisha Speed coming out of Barbados, or we could see more Rihanna's coming out of Barbados. None of Rihanna's music that blew up on the world stage is in any way Bajan, is in any way soca, is in any way any Caribbean at all. And then a lot of people will say, okay, well, that's technically a sellout. But is it really? It's just about what it takes to reach success. If you want to reach success, sadly, there are only 250,000 people here in Barbados. And there is no way to achieve the level of success that all of us as humans would like, only catering to 250,000 people. So that would be the takeaway for me. Try to make your content and your music a lot more relatable to a global audience or even a Caribbean-wide audience, as opposed to just strictly here in Barbados.
You had a favorite part of the speed tour? Anything that you think Barbados could have improved upon coming out to that particular tour?
Of the Barbados one specifically,
We can look across the Caribbean.
the Barbados tour specifically, I think it was well done. You started off at foundation school, showing him we have lots of students, lots of his fans. That is his demographic. I would say the average speed fan, if you had to make it an avatar, is probably like a 14 or 15-year-old boy. So that makes a lot of sense. Then they went to the fish market, taught him about cutting fish. That is very central to our culture here in Barbados. Oistins is one of the oldest towns here. They've been doing that for hundreds of years, literally. So that was good. We went on to Shafat. Shafat is a cultural landmarker. And essentially, we did showcase our culture the best that the people tasked with doing it at short notice could have. Maybe I would have liked to see something on the East Coast, maybe Harrison's Cave, maybe Animal Flower Cave. Some of those are the more things that make Barbados more unique. Because everything else, like there's a KFC, there's a Shafat, there's fast food in other countries. Every single island did some kind of carnival / crop over type thing. So obviously we did that too. But maybe some of the more things specific to Barbados, if I had to point to one or two things, I would have tried to put Animal Flower Cave or Harrison's Cave on that agenda, just to showcase a little more of Barbados. And he didn't do anything like that in any other island. So that might have really made us pop a little bit more.
That's a fair take for sure. But in terms of centralizing the conversation and, routing it back to Donald Leacock and the work that you do within the Instagram and TikTok space, what should people really feel from the type of content that you're putting out?
Well, when I came back, I really wanted to leave an impact. I wanted to kind of wake people up here in Barbados, but that kind of content is the hardest to do consistently. So what I ended up settling on is just feel good, positive content. So that's what I really like to do. Lots of my content on my personal page is focused around comedy, and then on the charity, it's philanthropy and actual charitable work. So whether you're seeing me on a charity page or my regular page, you're getting content that's either charitable, comedic, and a lot more into the future now, financial education.
Tell us a little bit about the Build Up BIM charity. I know you have content centered around Build Up BIM. What is it, and what should people look out for where Build Up BIM is concerned?
Yeah, so the Build Up Barbados Foundation is a registered charity, number 1639, and it was founded June 17th, 2022. So there are two main aims and goals of the charity. One is poverty alleviation. So you can think of something like a Salvation Army, where we feed the homeless, do lots of food drives around Christmas time, and just general poverty alleviation activities. Then the second aim is youth empowerment. So you could think of more like a YMCA. That's where we do lots of mentoring sessions, and then we open up sports like golf to communities that wouldn't have been able to access them otherwise.
Following on from the conversation surrounding Build Up BIM, you're also a chartered accountant, and oftentimes there's that saying that creativity is intelligence having fun. You're focused on comedy, which isn't the easiest thing for people to do, but I know you have like a huge youth following in Barbados. Why use comedy as a way to connect?
It's probably the easiest. It's probably, if you're being realistic. When you're thinking about creating content, you have to think about what's going to go viral. So artists go viral because people love music. That's something easy. I'm not an artist, so I had to think about, well, what's the next best thing? Comedy is easily the next best thing that anybody in the world can relate to. So even though the content might be here in Barbados, physically located, I still try to articulate my words well. I don't over exaggerate the accent. I still try to make it palatable to at least the Caribbean, And in my ideal world, all of my content would be marketable to the whole world, so that then I could be a worldwide influencer. And I don't want to say comedian because it's so much more than just comedy, but a worldwide influencer as opposed to just here in Barbados or the Caribbean.
You think for influencers locally, if you're providing advice to them, there should be strategy beyond just producing content for the sake of?
Definitely, there definitely should be strategy. So you should be thinking of what's the perfect mix between carousels, which is the multiple posts at the same time, and then reels, stories, and then what platforms as well. Am I posting on TikTok? Am I posting on X? Am I posting on Instagram? Am I posting on Facebook? Because a lot of people don't realize that these platforms can just be gone in a second. We could wake up tomorrow and TikTok could just be completely gone. Suppose you were focusing on TikTok. A lot of my audience are youth, so TikTok is one of the platforms that I focus on. But suppose I just completely neglected my Facebook and Instagram in that time. So you really need to be cross-pollinating all of your content. So if you have a piece of content, you got to post it on X, formerly Twitter. You got to post it on Instagram. You got to post it on Facebook. You got to post it on TikTok, potentially LinkedIn, anything else. You need to build your follower base across all of the platforms, not just one or two. So just the perfect example of doing, keep all your eggs in one basket.
If Instagram was to crash now or TikTok, what would be your next pivot? You've ever given thought to that or had any concerns? What if the platform that I'm most popular on crashes tomorrow?
Just crashes. Well, gratefully and luckily, it's not my only source of income being an influencer. I am an accountant, so I would still be able to make a living otherwise, but it would be a tough switch. That's why I'm seeing a lot of WhatsApp channels popping up now, and I think that's the reason why people are starting to realize, oh, well, what if Instagram just goes off? What if something just goes off? What if I get shadow banned, for example, on one of these platforms? The power in having your own audience is phenomenal. Let's say even you had an email. Let's say I had the email of all 21,000 people that followed me on Instagram. That's far more powerful than the Instagram followers themselves. Because a lot of people don't know, but the algorithm only pushes your content organically. It's about maybe 20% of your following. So if you have 10,000 followers, Instagram is really going to only show that to about 3,500 people. Unless it's a great piece of content that the algorithm picks up on, then it could go viral from there. But they want you to spend money on the ads in the platform. They want you to pay for Facebook ads, Instagram ads. So even if you do have that 10,000 followers, the platform, to reach all 10,000 of those, they're still going to want you to pay. So if you are able to build that following on your own, let's say email lists, phone numbers, WhatsApp channels, then if you have a WhatsApp channel with 10,000 people in it and you send a message in that, all 10,000 of those people are easily going to see that. So that is something that creatives can start to think about, building their following and database offline as opposed to online as well. Getting people's email address, their WhatsApp number, stuff like that, that you'll have forever, regardless of a platform, which you're only a third party on. As an influencer, you're only a third party on Instagram's platform or on YouTube's platform. So these platforms have all the power at the end of the day. So they're just small ways that you can take back that power by building your own database of your followers.
Don, I think this is a perfect pivot for our next segment. We're going to focus on youth entrepreneurship, the influence of yourself as an accountant as well. I know you've done some work in mentorship where accountants are concerned. All right. So we'll be right back with more of this one-on-one with founder of the Build Up Barbados charity, chartered accountant, and also influencer, Mr. Donald Leacock. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Danielle Reed Malilo and I'm a general physician. Today we're going to have a casual talk about herpes simplex virus. Herpes simplex virus is a viral infection that has two subtypes, type 1 and type 2. These are treatable but not curable. Type 1 usually causes lesions around the nose and mouth, and type 2 usually causes lesions below the waist. These lesions can be itchy and painful and can be singular or in clusters. It is spread by skin-to-skin contact with active lesions which may be out of the scope of a condom. Herpes simplex virus is easily treated and should not be stigmatized. So use protection and get tested today.
Welcome back to this edition of One on One. We're having a conversation with chartered accountant and businessman, Mr. Donald Leacock. Donald, we promised our viewers to touch on youth entrepreneurship and opportunities in Barbados, but I wanted to ask, in terms of accounting, where accounting is concerned, there's always a return on investment. So I wanted to know, in terms of your public-facing work, what's the hardest lesson you've had to learn in terms of having a voice as an influencer?
The hardest lesson that you will learn is that it brings you under the public eye and there's lots of scrutiny. If you want to, for the sake of this example, be loud out there in the public, people are gonna look for the quietest things that you do in private and try to make those loud as well. So it really just comes with the territory. If you know that you want to put your face out there, be a role model, be everything, be a public figure, an influencer, and everything that entails, you need to be able to face the public scrutiny, the public backlash at times, and just everything, and just essentially living almost under a microscope. Everything you do will be commented about more than others. Any little issue you have will be blown up more than others. So it's really about knowing that, being cognizant of that, and making sure that you yourself can rise to the occasion and can stay in the public eye, without any scandals, without anything like that. Because little thing that you do that might have been fine for somebody who's not on the internet to do, it's going to be a big issue if you do it. Mm-hmm. So you really need to be ready for that. You need to know within yourself, yes, I need to raise my standards. I need to be a model citizen because everybody is kind of looking for you to downfall. Mm-hmm.
But you've remained unfazed. Do you feel, what about Donald Leacock you would say was built for the public's image?
I would just have to say my dad, to be honest. My dad was a big public figure even before social media. I know that if he was still alive in his social media time, he'd be way up there in terms of, he has an official position in the government, but he would have been just on his personal social media, he would have been big. We're both very extroverted, I would say. We love doing things like this, interviews, public speaking, stuff like that. I actually gain energy from it. So I thoroughly enjoy the opportunity to come speak to you, anybody else that invites me on to speak to in front of school. It could be thousands of people. It doesn't really matter. So that was really my biggest asset, just being comfortable in front of camera, comfortable in front of hundreds or thousands of people. And that is probably the biggest skill that you need. Public speaking and speaking in general, just being able to articulate yourself in a perfect manner is one of the best skills any human can have, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of genuine authenticity where CARICOM Don or Don Leacock is concerned as well. But grounding the conversation back to entrepreneurship, Build Up BIM is focused on poverty alleviation, and you carry a wealth of knowledge and talent under your belt, even though you're relatively young. A multi-hyphenate in accounting, in mentorship, in entrepreneurship. What's the biggest focus for you where youth entrepreneurship is concerned locally?
Just driving it forward, to be honest. Our generation is not the generation of our parents. Most of our parents got a job when they were 20 years old and retired from that same company when they were 65. That's not happening among young people at all. The sad reality is that the cost of living here in Barbados and the worldwide has made it such that young people need to have a side hustle and another job. There's a 9-to-5 alone can't sustain most people. And that's crazy to think about, but it is the reality that we are living in. So I would definitely drive entrepreneurship forward for all youth. For so many different reasons. Even from the accounting perspective, entrepreneurs pay less taxes than employees do. Let's say, just for a quick example, an entrepreneur and an employee both make $100,000 in a year. That employee is going to be subject to 11% tax on the first 50,000 and then 28% tax on the next 50,000. They're going to end up paying well over $10,000 in taxes. Whereas if they owned a business, the business would be taxed at a 5.5% tax rate, and they're paying only about 5.5% in tax for that. So really, there's so many different reasons that the entrepreneurship route makes the most sense, but then you do have to be built for it as well. There are leaders, there are followers in the world, but even if you weren't born a leader, it is that something that you can develop. You can develop public speaking skills, you can develop those marketing skills, you can develop that financial knowledge and everything. So even if you do feel a little bit intimidated about going the entrepreneurship route, there are things that you can develop, but it's not for everybody at the same time.
Absolutely.
Lots of people are just super comfortable if they have a decent 9 to 5, if they can pay all their bills. They don't want any noise, any drama, because people call my phone at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. asking me business questions when I would much rather just be relaxing, doing something personal. You don't have that personal life. There's such a blur between your personal life and your business life as an entrepreneur. Like, I work from home lots of times, even from my bedroom. That's supposed to be a place of sanctity and sleep, but it's not anymore. And then COVID really taught us that the work from home culture is sustainable. Bosses can still get significant output from employees if they don't physically see them. So that's the way the world is going. And entrepreneurship is a necessity. It's not just something that sounds good anymore. It's really a necessity that young people need to master. And to become an entrepreneur, you don't even need to do something outside of what you're already doing. Just what are your passions? What are your hobbies? What are you good at? Just find a way to monetize those. Because if you're doing something that you like, you'll never work in a day in your life.
You're juggling. You can safely be considered a serial entrepreneur, Don. Do you think it is still important for entrepreneurs when they're starting out to focus on one particular gig, or do you see that entrepreneurship and being pursuing serial entrepreneurship can actually still turn into a success?
You have to focus on one thing at one point in time. So all of the successful serial entrepreneurs that you see out there in society, they were focused on one thing at that particular point in time. The richest man in the world, Elon Musk, when he started Tesla, he spent all day, all night on that. That became a success. He produced cars. The cars are selling themselves now. Now he's on to SpaceX. Now he's going to spend all of his time on that. He's getting rockets. They're launching into atmosphere. He moves on to the next thing, the Boring Company, trying to make tunnels under the ground. So yes, you can be a serial entrepreneur, but you can't start multiple ventures at the same time. You need to take a venture from the point of zero until it's monthly revenue. And only at that point can you try to hire people to take yourself out of the situation. Because then there's a huge difference between being self-employed and a business owner. And that's why I tell people all the time. People that are self-employed, yes, they can say they're an entrepreneur. Yes, they can say they run a business. But do you truly run a business if the business can't function without you? So for example, like if you own just a little village shop, are you the person making the day-to-day sales, or have you hired someone? If you've hired someone, you can truly say that you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner at that point, because you could leave, you could go to St. Vincent, the Grenadines, relax for a week, and you're still making money. But if you cannot extract yourself from the business and the business keep going, you haven't reached the stage where you can focus on another gig or another opportunity as yet. You need to build a business so successful that you have zero input to it, you have zero working hours in it, and it's still producing money. When you've built the business to that point, move on to the next one.
Which brings me to the other point, the importance of delegation. In terms of the mentorship that you're offering from where you sit, why do you think so many micro entrepreneurs are afraid to delegate? And what's your advice for anybody watching the program?
In our society, the businesses are small. I mentioned earlier, Barbados is only a land of 250,000 people. For some reasons, that's good. Other reasons, in business, it's not great. Whereas a Jamaican selling anything in Jamaica has an audience of 3 million people to sell it. So you can become outrageously rich selling things to 3 million people. Can you do that selling things to 250,000 people? It's going to be a lot harder, right? So when you're thinking about delegation, I think a lot of younger people don't like to delegate because it's directly eaten into their bottom line, their profits. You're going to tell yourself, well, if going back to the shop example, I can keep 100% of the money I make if I just run the shop myself. But what they're not thinking is I could open 10 shops if I have somebody running each of those individual shops. And it's a fear. It comes out of fear to begin with. Trust, fear and trust. Can I trust somebody else to handle this money for me? Can I trust somebody else to do this service or sell this product as well as I do? Lots of people who are successful in entrepreneurship are the face of their brand, and they really fear someone else coming in and messing that up. But the only way to grow a business is truly to delegate. So you're going to need to kind of find that comfort zone between trying to trust the people that you're bringing on, finding top talent. And this would be a great point to even introduce AI into now. Now we have AI, large language models. Claude is my favorite. There's ChatGPT, there's Gemini, there's so many others. But they can do for $20 a month what it used to take a team of employees to do. So we're actually getting rid of that excuse for businesses and entrepreneurs to delegate, because now we can have a computer to delegate to, as opposed to humans.
Turning the page from the point that you just made, which is critically important, how confident are you regarding the next generation of successful entrepreneurs coming out of Barbados with the facilitation that we've seen from the current administration and also administrations within the past on both sides of the fence?
Any politician that wants votes in the next election is going to push entrepreneurship. That is something that you're going to have to do, not just youth entrepreneurship on a whole. Empowering society, making everybody much more self-reliant, self-sufficient is something that every politician, regardless of party, should be focusing on. In terms of specific initiatives, yes, I do think that this current administration are trying to roll out various initiatives. There's the Division of Youth, which have the YES program and other programs that help spur entrepreneurs forward. Back in I was still a teenager, to be honest, in the last administration, so I can't point to any specific initiatives that they would have had. Right, but this administration, yes, there's the YES program. There are other different initiatives that people are doing. There is in the Ministry of People Empowerment, they're doing the Shark Tank pitches at the moment, which I was a judge on. Yes. So that is giving critical mentorship to various small businesses. So we have ladies selling soaps, we have ladies growing plants, we had a barber in the last one. So many different micro businesses that really, I myself are adding the finance and marketing side of promotion. But at the end of the day, anybody who is an entrepreneur in general could mentor these people. So the fact that the government is actually handing people cash money after they've made these pitches to us is impressive. And I would say that's definitely the best initiative so far. In the Ministry of People Empowerment, they call it the Dolphin. So not Shark Tank like we see on TV, but we were the Dolphins. And we heard pitches from various entrepreneurs, and we awarded them various levels of cash based off of how good that pitch was. So something like that really could blow up in schools, for example. We can see, because entrepreneurship is not something that you need to be an adult to do. A 5-year-old can have a great idea and make millions of dollars if you're selling to other 5-year-olds. So it's something that we really need to push. I believe there is an entrepreneurship subject you can do at Cape now. All of that is incredible. So everything we can do to push entrepreneurship from as early as possible is what we need to continue to do.
For you, having had a Pan-Caribbean experience from Guyana and the work of your dad and even the work that you're doing as an entrepreneur as well, do you feel as if Barbadian entrepreneurs are capitalizing enough on those bilateral relations we sign on with Belize, Dominica, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines in terms of doing business with those 3 countries? And how can we move towards excelling in terms of those partnerships based on what government has signed on to?
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity in these countries. I think that when most people are thinking about moving and the right to work, they're just thinking about being an employee. So from a Bajan's point of view, you might think like you're getting the short end of the stick. If you go from here to Belize, the minimum wage in Belize, I believe, is $2.50 US hour. That's only 5 Bajan. Yeah. Our minimum wage is double that.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad in St. Vincent and Dominica, but their minimum wages, and not just minimum wages, their wages in general are less than here in Barbados. So if you're thinking about it from an employment or becoming an employee standpoint, Bajans might tell themselves, man, well, I may just stay here in Barbados because if I do get a job, the job in my field that I want is going to have the highest earning potential of any of the four countries in that agreement. But if they were to shift their outlook into a more entrepreneurial outlook, that could be something because Barbados is ahead of the curve in quite a few things. Let's talk about infrastructure, education. We are quite a bit ahead of the curve from the other islands. So if we are able to take some of our successful businesses from Barbados and incorporate that in St. Vincent, in Dominica and Belize, that is an avenue that you could definitely look to pursue. But from Bajans, strictly moving to those other three countries for employment, they might think that they're getting the short end of the stick.
Now that you made mention of that, in a recent post that you did on Instagram, you were mentioning the importance of not only traveling for leisure, but traveling to expand social capital, to expand financial capital, the importance of traveling to build networks and to expand, you know, the business that you may have locally here in Barbados. Tell us about that post and what inspired it.
The post, yes, the post is just spurring on goodwill throughout the whole Caribbean, Latin America, South America. The world has become a lot more politically divided. Countries, I believe, are becoming a lot more nationalistic. We've seen that here in Trinidad in the Caribbean, saying that they want to come out of CARICOM, saying that they don't care about anybody but themselves. And lots of countries are taking up that same ideology. So in a world where everybody is a lot more divided and a lot more one way, I still think that we do need to come together. We do need to collaborate because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it is, but like if you can go to Guyana, meet someone who's selling watermelons for only $1 over there, they can sell for $20 here, and you can form that alliance and then import that business. They're making a lot of money for them in Guyana, and you're making a lot of money for you here in Barbados. So it's really about traveling, seeing which sides of the world. As I said earlier, different islands and different countries in the world have different benefits. They have different strengths. So you need to realize what that country's strength is and try to bring it to Barbados. Or what is Barbados's strength? Try to take that to that country. So it's all about finding those synergies, and you won't know they even exist until you go into the world and explore it.
But when we come back, we're going to focus on youth and some of the opportunities that are out there for young people. Young people coming from poor families, disenfranchised communities, and having your take on if the Bajan dream is still possible, right? We'll be right back with more of this one-on-one with youth entrepreneur and charity builder, Mr. Don Leacock. Please stay with us.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Danielle Reed Melillo and I'm a general physician. Today we're going to have a casual talk about syphilis. Syphilis is a curable infection spread by oral, vaginal, anal sex, and contact with infected lesions. Syphilis has 4 stages: primary, secondary, latent, and tertiary. The disease progresses to each stage until treated. The primary stage causes a painless chancre lesion. The secondary stage causes a generalized rash, which is non-itchy and mainly concentrated in the hands and the soles of the feet. The latent stage can last for years if left untreated, and the tertiary stage can cause dementia and other major organ damage. All damage caused is permanent, so use protection and get tested today.
Welcome back to this edition of One-on-One. We're so happy that you stayed with us, continuing this conversation with entrepreneur and founder of the Build Up BIM charity and influencer, Mr. Don Leacock. Don, we promised our viewers to touch a little bit on youth entrepreneurship. Do you think the Bajan dream still exists and is possible for Barbadians to achieve? And even so, while you answer this particular question, what do you think the Bajan dream should look like as we look down the road into 2030, 2035 and beyond?
The Bajan dream is definitely still alive. There's so many different ways you can achieve it. What does the Bajan dream look like? It just looks like autonomy, self-fulfillment, self-reliance, being able to do something completely independent on your own and growing that into something successful. What the Beijing dream should look like, as we've already slightly alluded to in this conversation, is not just one storefront or one business. We should be looking to expand, as we mentioned earlier, delegate so that we can start more and more. If we're a store, we should be thinking, how can I open a village shop in every village in Barbados? Or if we're already bigger than that, if we're a restaurant, how can I open more restaurants? How could I take this restaurant to St. Vincent or Dominica or Belize or one of the other countries that we can now do business with? So the Bajan dream is definitely still alive. We just need to think a lot bigger. We need to think a lot broader. And we need to move a little bit away from tourism. Obviously, tourism is 75% of our economy. So that is still where most people will focus businesses. People are going to focus on how can I try to sell my products and services to the tourists. The tourists have much more spending power. They bring in foreign currency. So they are going to be our main market. But going into the 2030 and past, I would really like to see slight moves away from tourism. It could be anything else. As I said, and AI is going to bring on this change. There's so many different things that you can do with AI now. If any of us wanted to become a carpenter tomorrow, AI could teach us how to do that. If we wanted to be an architect tomorrow, they could teach us how to do that. So it's really the next couple of years coming into 2030. AI is going to get even more powerful. So I really think the people that are going to be successful from now till 2030 are the people that are the most in tune and educated on AI itself, which you don't need to go to UE or anywhere else to learn. All you need to do is sit down and talk to it, maybe watch a couple YouTube videos and learn it yourself. So I think AI and technology are really going to play a huge role in the next batch of successful entrepreneurs. So it's just about how you learn to leverage that.
Should young people be concerned about what they're giving to AI, knowing how much AI can know about oneself? Any cautions that you would have? Or do we embrace this wholeheartedly?
It's tough because people are always going to have reservations. When the internet first started, people had reservations about the internet. Search engines came out. People saw the utility in it, and then people went wholeheartedly into it. Things like Google, Apple Pay, all of these things have all your information right now. There are older people that are hesitant to it. Me personally, I wouldn't approach it with hesitancy. I would say that the best way to go about it is to embrace it and try to use it as much as possible to automate some of the tasks in your daily life, and then to help you build things, to help you grow things. Either of us can create a website in 5 minutes completely for free with AI. When on earth was that possible before? You used to have to go to UE for 3 years, learn how to code, and do it. Now you can just tell AI I want a red and blue website that sells coconuts, and it'll be up in 5 minutes. So the ability to do so much, to build so much, you can build apps the same way. There's so much that you can do, so much you can build. There's so many different avenues to earn money. You can, whether it be graphic designing posters, whether it be anything, there's so much you can do with AI now that you couldn't do previously, even a year or two ago. So it gives young people a lot of opportunity. And then I would still go back to the delegation aspect as well. There's so many different things that you can delegate to AI that you used to have to dedicate to people. And in terms of answering the question, is AI going to replace a lot of jobs? I would say it's going to replace the people that don't know how to use it effectively. Because if you're a business owner, you shouldn't necessarily be replacing all the people with AI, because you can just have more productive employees. If you teach your current employee how to use these systems, you now have an employee that can do the work of 5 or 6 employees. You don't need to fire anybody. You can just have a lot more productivity. Your business can have more sales. You can offer more services. So it's just about utilizing AI to help you grow.
Now that you made mention of being educated where AI is concerned, how do you feel about our approach towards education transformation as we speak about the next generation of entrepreneurs, as we speak about, AI possibly teaching what UE teaches or what YouTube used to teach? What's your take on that?
Well, education transformation is coming along. I saw in the newspaper this week some students commenting on doing the CXCs and CAPE subjects on the computer. That's something I didn't know they were doing. But I definitely think multiple choice questions and that would be fine. I don't want students to lose the art of handwriting and other stuff because it is a lot better for your brain than typing. When you're in the school, you shouldn't just be on an iPad taking notes. You should be writing. The neurological connections in your brain fire a lot better when you write as opposed to when you type. So there are a few things that we might get caught up in the transformational aspect of it. Yes, it sounds good for the government to say, oh, we want to have every kid with an iPad instead of just the pencils and notebooks. But what does that do for the brain? It's not the best solution all of the time. So we just need to find that perfect balance between the traditional system and then incorporating all of the transformation that needs to happen. On my end, when I think transformation, I think of the syllabus itself can be transformed. In terms, we could be teaching taxes instead of Pythagoras theorem. You know what I mean? Things like that. That's what education transformation for me would really make sense. Teaching applicable skills, like financial literacy, as opposed to some of the more technical things in math, and then you can teach so many other things. There's a finance CAPE subject, there's an entrepreneurship CAPE subject. So just moving in the direction of real world skills as opposed to these more abstract concepts that my generation, your generation, previous generation. We learned, I think, in my opinion, in school, a lot of abstract concepts that we'll never take forward into the workforce. So in education transformation for me looks like getting rid of all those abstract constructs and then just replacing them with real world material that you can tell somebody, okay, in 5 years when you're 20 years old in the real world, you will be able to use this, you will be able to do this.
And for you, you've benefited from the Barbadian education system. How do you feel towards us, ridding the system of the 11 plus and having centers of excellence as opposed to that? Do you think, having these more important subjects where taxes may be concerned and entrepreneurship is more important than actually, trying to revise the entire system of what is, but more so the substance of what we're trying to accomplish?
I have heard the explanation for the centers of excellence. I'm not sure I fully understand it and comprehend it, but I am fully in favor of the 11 plus. I would never be in favor of getting rid of it. Lots of people say it's lots of pressure for the children. It's lots of competition. There's lots of tears a couple months later when you don't get into your right school. But that's all a part of becoming, a successful person. Successful people thrive under pressure. The pressure is a normal part of life. You're not doing anything worthwhile in life if you don't feel any kind of pressure at all. If you're a parent, you feel pressure to provide for your child, to make sure that they're raised the right way. If you're an employee, you feel pressure to make your boss happy. If you're an entrepreneur, you feel pressure to keep your customers happy. So all of the things that we at our stage in life are using require pressure. So taking away pressure from an 11-year-old, I don't know if it's the best thing. We do need to keep life competitive. Now, are you going to take away sports day? Are you going to take away all forms of competition just to appease people's feelings? I think that the 11 plus does serve a good role. It does kind of give us a little idea of where the children are at that point in time. And it's not in any way cognizant of what they'll be when they're 16, 17, 18 years old. You might not have had the best 11 plus results, but then you might go on to get 8 or 9 CXCs at grade 1 and go to BCC and get a Barbados scholarship and still be just as successful as someone that did well in the 11 plus. So I still think that it is a really good barometer. I would need to see a lot more concrete explanations of the centers of excellence. But to me, the 11 plus is a perfect gauge for where students should be. We can just switch the curriculum in every single school. If you do want to say, okay, we want to have like a secondary school, like SJPP, like a trade school.
SJPA.
Right, but at a secondary school level, we're from first form, we're learning being installing solar panels or carpentry, electrician. That could be interesting if we have people who are 100% sure that at 11, 12 years old, that's what they want to do. Then all power to them, go ahead and pursue that. But I still think that we should keep the 11 plus and we should keep the traditional schools in their sense. We can just tailor the curriculum in the different schools to that.
Well, we made mention of the 11 plus. Something that you said interesting there is the importance of pressure. Diamonds being built under pressure, gold coming from pressure beneath the earth as well. We are within the month of May, which is recognized as, World Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know within one of your bios, you have health is wealth. How important do you think it is for young entrepreneurs as well, rooting the conversation back to entrepreneurship, to prioritize their health as they look towards building wealth? And what do you think that should look like?
It really is a tough balance. As I mentioned earlier, entrepreneurship is a 24/7, 365 thing. It doesn't turn off or it doesn't turn on. Well, especially if you're building something, it doesn't really turn off or on. So how do you really prioritize that mental health in the pursuit of building something great? Because you only have 24 hours in a day. And if you were an entrepreneur in the perfect world, you'd spend all 24 hours marketing your services, building new products to sell, completing services to make revenue. But then when do you have time for family? When do you have time to rest? So it's all about your own personal balance. There are lots of different things you can do to kind of detach. I personally try to meditate maybe between 5 and 10 minutes a day. So that's literally just 5 to 10 minutes where I just sit down, breathe deeply, and think absolutely no thoughts. That really does a lot to, it's like a dopamine detox for me as well. Most of the time, whether if we're not scrolling on social media, we're just looking at screens in general. And I think that has really, it's going to increase cases of ADHD, and it's definitely going to make our concentration a lot worse. So what we really need for entrepreneurs, everybody needs to just know their own body, know what they can take, but you need to have structured time out for yourself, whether that be, okay, I'm done doing anything to do with work at 5 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., whatever that time frame is for you. And then you just need to know that your body and mind can't function optimally to make money if you're not healthy. So you do need to prioritize your body, your diet, and yes, your mental health, first and foremost.
What are some of the concerns you're hearing on the ground now that you've spoken to health generally in terms of what young people actually want to see in a modern Barbados, and some of their concerns even surrounding mental health or health generally and towards the path of wealth?
Social media is the biggest detriment in this pursuit. Social media is somewhere where we post 99% of our highlights. Most of the things you see on my page would be, you see, the comedy content isn't my real life, obviously. Those are skits completely created. But you are not ever posting your losses on social media. I might post if I got an award. I might post if I got recognized somewhere. I might post if I had a public speaking engagement somewhere. But I'm never posting, this place rejected my proposal, this place denied my application for this. You're never posting those. So when you look at the producers of social media, you're thinking their lives are perfect. A lot of people think my life is a lot more perfect and easier than it is, because there are so many rejections. For every time I land a new accounting client, 15 people have told me, well, no, I'm not going to go with you. And that is frustrating. It took me a lot of time to get to the stage to propose to those other 15 people who ended up rejecting it. So social media has everybody thinking that their life is awful and the people that they follow, their lives are incredible, when that's not really the case. Nobody's posting their losses on social media. So you need to take social media with a grain of salt. A lot of the things are completely, a lot of the things can be fabricated to a certain extent to make, just to embellish certain situations. So you really do need to be cognizant of, okay, well, if I can see him winning that much, that means that he is working hard in the background. That means that there are some losses that he's taking, and it's okay for me to take losses as well. So what social media has done, which is very detrimental, it has taken away that acceptability of people losing sometimes. Mental health really decays when you think that you're losing more than other people, because you're looking at social media and only seeing other people winning. So you're not seeing other people's losses, you're not seeing other people's difficulties, you're just seeing your own difficulties, you're seeing your own losses. But then you're looking at social media and just seeing all this positive stuff. You're like, my life is awful compared to those people who I'm looking up to. So I'm just here to say that that is not the case. I'm losing just as much as I'm winning in certain circumstances. So people need to remember that as well. Just like you have losses in your life. I definitely have losses in my life. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster as opposed to employability, where you're kind of just on a flat line making the same money every month. There's some months you could make even $0 if things go catastrophically wrong. Some months you can lose money. Like an employee can never lose money because they're just going into the job making money. So entrepreneurship is something that you do have to have the stomach for it. You do have to have the mental health for it. And it is something that can destroy your mental health quite fast if you weren't fully ready for it. So if it's a case where you wanted to start a new business, I would always tell people keep your 9 to 5 until the point where your entrepreneurial pursuit is making at least 50% of what your 9 to 5 is only at that point that I would try to quit my 9 to 5 to fully focus on an entrepreneurship pursuit.
That's a brilliant and sound point of substance, Don. But so many important points you've made surrounding entrepreneurship, helping those who are considered from the different disenfranchised communities as well. But we've come to the end of this special one-on-one, and I want to sincerely thank you for spending some time with us here today on Set for One-on-One.
Thanks so much, Ms. Sharon. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. We've come to the end of this special one-on-one with influencer and founder of the Build Up BIM charity, chartered accountant Mr. Don Leacock. On behalf of my producer, I'm Miss Sharon Robinson. Until the next time.